Hello, everybody. This is Naja Hall. Of course, you guys know my voice by now. I think this is episode 90 something. We're all the way up there, guys. We're getting old. Yikes. So, welcome to another episode of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall. I have two. I think these guys are equally as crazy as the rest of us, but we're about to find out. I have the Tandys here with me today. So I have Randall and Scarlett of Enjoying Your Blended Family. So right after this dance break, I'm about to tell you all about the Tandys.
I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy.
Today, I'm sitting down with Randall and Scarlett Tandy. They officially started their blended family journey in 2008 after dating for a year and a half. They started with 3 kids, 1 his baby and 2 of her babies, and then later on fostered a teenager. Now, we all know that blended families are full of tons of twists and turns, but Randall and Scarlett's story is one especially of heartbreak because they saw their kids each leave one by one during their teenage years to go and live with their other parent. They dealt with periods of estrangement, having struggling relationships, and ultimately saw each and every one of their kids come back to them and were able to develop a stronger than ever relationship. The Tandys' mission is to strengthen blended family relationships and having more fun, giving us hope and encouraging everybody to enjoy the journey together. Now I need everybody to put your hands together and give the Tandys a warm I Know I'm Crazy welcome. And hey guys, for those of you out there in I Know I'm Crazy land that are listening to this on one of your favorite streaming platforms, this particular episode you can also go and see. So if you want to get a visual, if you're more of a visual creature, then pop over to my YouTube, any one of my social channels or the website and go and look at us. So let's get into who the heck these Tandys are. You guys have come in this blended family niche real fast and made a name for yourself, and you guys do it in such a freaking positive way. Is it real? Is this positivity for real? Tell me that.
No, for real. It is for real, but it is intentional.
It's a choice.
It's a choice, right? So You have to choose to be happy. You have to choose joy, and it can be hard. It can be tough in blended families to do that. So we have to be intentional about that and choose that happiness, choose to see the joy. And whenever you do, you see more of it.
Yes.
It really is like a snowball effect. What do I do?
So what do you do on the days because choosing joy, it sounds cool. It would make for a great t-shirt. Admin guys, remember, make the choose joy t-shirt. Let's get that up on Amazon tomorrow. But for real, what do you do, Scarlett, when it's hard, when life looks like it's trying to pull something else that's the opposite of joy from you? How do you choose freaking joy?
Yeah, well, and like Randall was saying, it is a choice, and we have to be. This all started because of the fact that it was so freaking hard, and we went through seasons and seasons and seasons where it was so hard that we felt like the seasons went by and we missed opportunities. So we decided that, okay, we've got to start enjoying these moments with our kids, without our kids, whatever that's going to look like. We have to figure this out. And so the crappy days, they still come on a regular basis. And that's where me personally, I have to have like a handful of things that I know this is what lifts up my spirit. So the first thing I do, I have to wake up and spend time with the Lord. That's the first thing I do, because if I don't, then I can let everything in life, just take me down. When my mind is constantly in this state of, I have zero control right here, and all I want to do is be able to control this situation, but I can't, I put worship music in my ears where it's positive thoughts and words, and I'll just cry and let it out until I just feel the peace inside of me. It might be going for a run while I'm listening to it as well. So I do these things to pick me up so that I can keep moving forward in the day, because life's not going to stop just because I'm in a funk or because something's happening with my kids that's out of my control.
That is so amazing that you say that, because my song is Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster. But however we just no worship music though, that I always cry whenever I listen to worship music, like during Sunday mornings at church. The prayer and worship time is like I'm snatching lashes off and I'm crying like, oh, because I'm acting so ugly during the week. So I feel like God is like, girl, you better come here and get real. But that's such a good task. You kind of go to that place where you become centered and you're able to recalibrate and you go to your source, which your particular source is to go into a spirit of worship. That's beautiful. That's amazing. So let's talk about you guys as blended family and what it looks like for you. Give us like the family structure breakdown. Who did what, who was married before, who ain't. Give us the breakdown.
Yeah, for sure. We both were divorced. We came from divorce, and I had one biological child, and she was 8 years old when we met. She had two biological kids. Funny story, both of our girls are named Riley. So initially, when she had started looking at possibly us talking, she was like, "Oh, this won't work.
Yeah.
We have two kids the same."
What do you do in that situation? You can't marry someone and have two kids with the same name.
Come on.
But hey, it worked. And so yeah, no, we came together just kind of, beautiful, and we married, and we said, this is it. Divorce is not an option. We've already been down that road, and we chose that, we're going to, through thick or thin, we're going to make this work. And so, no, we did. And it wasn't until probably about 5-6 years later, we added an addition to our family. It was a 18-year-old youth student that we had.
Not a normal addition.
Yeah, not a normal addition, but yeah, just kind of.
Wait a minute. What? Wait, y'all gotta wait, but go back. So your Hours baby was an 18-year-old Hours baby.
Okay. 18-year-old, much later down the road for sure. Yeah, but she was just really struggling, going through some hard times. So we brought her in. We saw a whole new form of blended family challenges that just bringing her in with our kids, and so yeah, it was just this thing to where now it is beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing, but yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Yes,
and all to get to the beauty too, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, because he just skipped right over anything that was difficult.
Scarlett, I was going to go back and say, wait a minute now. That was the abridged version, Rand, but I need the full.
Okay, so we gave you the short version. Now we can dive in. We can dive in a little deep, and yeah. We definitely had a lot of seasons.
Yes. So then let's talk about, because both of you previously were married. And then you've gone through the devastation of divorce for whatever reason, and you guys came together. Before we talk about the previous relationships, I want to know, how'd you guys meet? Because there's a lot of divorcees that listen to this podcast and they're thinking that they can't find love again or they feel hopeless. How did you meet? And give some suggestions to those divorcees that don't think that their second life is out there.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was through sort of a mutual friend. We were both just involved in our kids' lives, just, being single parents at this point. I was very freshly divorced, and he had been divorced probably about
5 years, 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. And both of us raising our children full time at that point. And so I had friends that their children were on the same softball team as his daughter. And so they called me up and was like, "Hey, we have this single dad we want you to meet." And I was so freshly divorced. I was like, I am not ready. And then they told me the whole, "Oh no, he's perfect. He's hardworking. He's good looking. Like, he's a great dad."
Wait a minute. How were you on the market, Randall, for 5 years though? I don't know. What's the deal?
It was a choice, and I really put my daughter first, because we went through it was such a tough divorce that, it was just a tough transition. We were living in one state and just really felt like me and her needed to come back to the state where I had my family at. So, it was a lot of transition periods, and just really took time to focus on me and who I was, and being a dad, taking care of my daughter, and just, I was just very involved.
Just wish more men would do that though. Just figure out who the heck you are. And then you were a custodial dad. So you had like this whole, the social stigma that comes along with that, and finding support. So it's good that you were like, wait, let me just make sure. Make
Yeah.
sure. So then Scarlett, they're like, hey, we got this hot dad for you. And you're like, oh no, I'm not ready. So what happened?
Yeah, so I wasn't ready because it was still so new, and I didn't think I could ever love anyone like I love my ex-husband, because we were high school sweethearts and stuff, and I just didn't even know how that would be possible. And I just began praying and asking, like, God, remove this feeling like from inside of me. I don't want to feel this way towards my ex, because
That's powerful.
we don't have a future together. I mean, I wanted it, but we
Mm.
didn't have it. And so I began to pray that, and I spent some time just allowing that to take place. And then one day I just, and I talk about God a lot because my faith is really what brought me to this place where I am at and able to be the parent that I am and the wife that I am and all of that. So I told God, it's a funny story, because I was in the shower one day and I was like, God, I think I'm ready. And this guy that I had never met before in my life, only one conversation had taken place of my friend calling and telling me about him. His name came up and I was like, what? So I jumped on it. I called my friends. I said, hey, I want to meet him. Y'all have any softball games coming up soon? And of course they did. I was living about an hour away. I drove down. I'm a little impulsive in that kind of way. Like, when I want something, I want something.
I went to go get your man. Listen,
Yeah, so I drove down. I came. It was our hometown that I was driving back to, and so I drove. Everyone in the stands knew that I was there to check out Randall, except Randall.
Had no idea.
I think, did your mom know, or she didn't know?
I don't think even my mom knew, because it was just me and my mom. They're watching my daughter play. Had no idea.
oh God.
So I saw him and I was like, thumbs up. I want to meet him. They introduced us after the game. It was a very quick interaction. We were both kind of awkward and weird with it. And it was back with flip phones. So he took my number down, and then he went to go work in the concession stand for his daughter, because that's the kind of guy he is, all in.
In the concession. Really? Come on, Randall.
I was like, Scar, I got to go. Let me get your number. We can talk later. Now, I messed up though. I messed up back I don't know if you remember flip phone days, but I closed the flip phone and I didn't save the number.
You didn't save it.
I didn't save it. And so it wasn't until later on that I realized, I went back to find the number and it wasn't there. And so I panicked and didn't really know what to do. So it was like a couple of days later that finally I'm like calling up the coach's wife and saying, do you have her number by any chance? And she's like, are you serious? You lost
She's like,
it already?
It's been days. Are you?
And they had already been asking me. I was like, he must not have liked me. It's okay. It's fine.
And really flip phone. Yeah, because if you don't hit save, and I don't know how old. We had some young millennials that listen to this. I don't even think they're probably like flip phones. You guys are dinosaurs.
It's a thing of the past. It is. It's so weird.
Like if you don't hit save on that flip phone, it's over. It's done. Remember, you had to if you wanted to text somebody a word with an S in it, you had to press like 4 buttons.
And I was a master at that. So when we got the touch screen, it was like my thumb is too big, because I was like, I knew how to click those.
Yes. So then it was basically, and that's it. It was love at first sight. You guys are like, we're going to do life together. And these are our situations. So then often, and I look at the statistics, or I used to, but not so much these days. When you're bringing in children and both parties have children, and you are doubly blending, because now you guys have your way of parenting. You're doing it your way over here, Scarlett. And now these kids are coming in who have different backgrounds. They each have another parent. What were the challenges? Or did you face any challenges with saying, okay, Riley's, let's all bunk up and be in the same house, and you're going to be Riley 1 and Riley 2? Like, what were the challenges that you guys had to face initially?
Yeah, we gave them a complex. So we called them Big Riley and Little Riley. And so, yeah, it's like years later, it's like, oh man, we messed up. Sorry, guys. We should have done something different here.
Yeah. And that really, though, I mean, it did, I think, eat on them on the inside eventually, but that was like really the least of our concerns. I mean, it started from even he proposed, everything was fine. Our kids were like all on board. The only thing that wasn't fine coming into the relationship was more my ex, that was a lot of red flags in the beginning of him seeing what situations that I was going through, because it just, we were still freshly divorced. So we had all of that baggage still like right there. And then right before we got married, his daughter was like, nope, dad, pump the brakes. I don't want this. Like, don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, you're fixing to walk down the aisle almost, it's kind of one of those. And it's like, whoa, because we had already
She had you to herself for 5 years. It was just you and your baby.
Yeah, it was
Randall
a challenge. Well, and even in our dating process, we took a year dating and, we went on a few dates even before we, brought the kids together just to make sure, you want to make sure that it's going to work. You don't want to just bring your kids and, into the mix until you kind of know for sure that, hey, I think this is going somewhere. And so, we did that and went on a few dates and, really saw that connection. Then we started bringing the kids around and we started doing things with them kind of together. We do fun things and have a lot of good times. And then whenever it came time for the proposal, I went to Riley and I talked to her and I'm like, I'm really thinking about marrying her. What do you think? And really kind of asking her, and she was all on board. Everything was great. And so, we just kind of really talked with our kids about this. But yeah, it came close to the day of, and she was backing out. It's like
she's like, you know what? No. Nope, I don't want this. I don't want this.
And but we saw a lot of that in our marriage. Initially was definitely her in that resistant role to the stepmom, to the bonus mom, right? There was there's that resistance, and of course there's going to be. She didn't know how to navigate through that, and we didn't necessarily even know how to talk through that at that time, and to be able to bring that out and to be able to help her through that, we were just taking. It's almost like firefighters, right? We're running around, putting this fire out, then go put that fire out, and, without trying to get ahead of it.
So then, when you guys because I know you said it was a couple of dates and you took some time. I don't think there's like a cliche amount of time, like, oh, don't introduce the kids for a year or for 6 months. But for you as a couple, what were the mile markers that said, hey, I think this is a good time for us to kind of bring our kids into this mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just, well, for one, we were doing long distance in the beginning. So we were an hour away. So we were talking a lot. Our conversations were very intentional in the beginning. We had a lot of like deeper conversation, late night convos before we got to the point where we were like, okay, we know this is what we want. And that's when we started, okay, let's find a time that we can introduce the kids. So it wasn't really like a certain amount of time. But because we did have to drive like to go see each other, I think it was a couple months before we got in there and we said, okay, let's get the kids together and in more of a group setting. And it did kind of work out nicely because of between the softball atmosphere that his daughter was already comfortable with and those group of people. And that was who I hung out on my extra time. And so just bringing all the kids together, not just our kids together in these group settings was very helpful. And I don't really think that it was like, okay, well, we got to wait this amount of time. It was just what was feeling more natural and comfortable in that situation. And then I always just say about 6 months in, if this is somebody
you do, you freaking know. Like for those of you single girls that are listening to this right now, and Randall, we're gonna hear from Randall too. Randall, how long did it take you to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this gal? This is gonna be mine. This is mine right here. Like it didn't take you years and years, right?
No, for definitely not. And kind of as she brought up, we had been divorced, so we kind of we had that past, so we kind of knew what we were looking for, and being able to ask some of those deeper questions, like she's saying. I mean, you're talking about if religion and Christianity is strong for you, then you want to bring that up because that could be a really a deal breaker if, y'all don't see eye to eye on that thing. And that's just one topic, right? So there's so many topics that you start looking for, and it's almost like an interview, right? Like you're kind of interviewing someone because it's so easy to rush in on our emotions whenever they're high. It's like, oh, I like you. You look good, and then you start going on and you start dating and you start having all this fun. You let the fun take over from the emotional state and what you're really looking for. And then now you're so involved that you feel like you can't back out or something.
Right.
And now you're getting yourself into a situation where, we didn't have those deep conversations. And now these are becoming bigger issues for us later on. So it really is, I think that was something that we did right. We did a lot of things wrong, but, we definitely did that right about talking about some of those things and our wants, our likes, dislikes,
You
what we're
just made
looking
sure that some
for
of your
in a
core
marriage.
values were
Yeah.
similarly aligned, right? So
For
then
sure.
let's talk about what we did wrong, because I mean, I built 2 whole platforms on all the wrong stuff I did. Nobody's going to get it right. None of us, know exactly what to do. But then let's talk best practices and some of the things that you guys learned just by bumping your head. So what did you do wrong, categorically wrong?
I would say the main thing is when I divorced, I was very adamant of I wanted to create a family now that was right. I wanted to do it the right way. And so I came in hot. And I wanted to be a mom and I wanted him to be dad in our household. And in that sense, I never really came about it in a way of like with my stepdaughter, like, hey, I'm not trying to replace your mom. Like I thought, okay, her mom is in a whole nother state. She needs a mom. I'm here. I can play that role. And so I came in with that mindset of mom, and that pushed her further away. And the more I'm a people pleaser and I want to come in and just make people like me. And I'm like wanting to just win her over. And the harder I tried and the more I pushed, the more resistance that she had. And so that's where I know, like, and I probably would not have admitted that through the process. It took going through the process and realizing like, oh yeah, I was
doing too much. You're like, I was kind of doing too much. This is a lot. What about you, Randall? What is one of those things, and when you're looking back, you're like, man, I dropped the ball on that one. Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, for sure. And I think parenting on the same page. For the probably first 3-4 years of our marriage, really we had a lot of differences that of how we wanted to parent. And so it was almost like we put that wall up to where I would parent Riley this way. Even whenever it came down to schools, we saw different things within our hometown. She wanted her kids to go to this one school and I wanted mine to go to another. I mean, it was just the little stupid things that we had that we didn't really we just, I would parent one way and she would parent another. And, so we had a lot of differences, and it wasn't until later to where we learned to really compromise and we learned to come together as a unit, as it's like, what, we are one team, and whenever we approached our family that way, whenever we finally got that, and we were able to come together and start talking through these problems and reaching compromises and that give and take, man, it revolutionized our marriage, revolutionized our parenting. So that was a big challenge that we faced.
And I know a lot of families out there, a similar situation where like he would say, I was very lenient with my kids. I wasn't hard enough. And I thought that he was too hard on them. And then both my kids were diagnosed ADHD. Well, during the marriage, the early years is when we just realized that they were ADHD. And so that has a whole nother aspect of how kids interact and how they do and how well they listen. The first time he raised Riley where he told her to do something and she did it. I told my kids to do something. We talked about it. They complained, they whined, and I told them again. And then eventually I would lose it on them. And then maybe they did what I asked.
He is seeing this and he's like, oh God, what is happening? Like,
Well, kind of like you were talking, the two different parenting styles, right? You had mentioned that earlier, and it's so big to be able to talk and work through that.
And I had gotten like in my head and what I thought, because I didn't want him to see that side of me, I began to parent away from him. So I would act all like whatever in front of him, in front of the kids. But when we were by ourselves, when we would get in the car, when we would head to school, whatever, then I would just go off on them. And then I would turn into crazy woman because I was too scared to let him see me actually parent in that way because I was afraid he was going to leave. And I didn't want to find myself 30 years old with 2 divorces behind me and being, trying to figure this thing out again. So I really kept that side of me hidden and secret. And what it was doing is it was really messing with my kid's head. Cause you could imagine you're seeing 2 different sides of mom,
Right. You're like, mom is so nice in front of Randall, but in the car, she rips our heads off. Like, what is happening here? And then also, you said the kids that got diagnosed. And so that does present an entirely different level of how do I parent? And I'm sure you both had a learning curve because the kids got diagnosed during your marriage, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
we did. We really dove into that, and started getting books and
yeah,
researching, and kind of the best way to parent through this, because it's a challenge, and you have to approach that differently. And
absolutely.
especially with
Absolutely.
that, they need consistency and structure, and that
Yes.
was just something that we struggled with because we're so busy. We kind of let the
Mm.
busyness of life pull us away to
Mhm.
where we couldn't really have a good structure.
Yeah.
Yes. Now,
Oh,
how
I
long
was
have you
gonna
guys been married?
Uh,
going on
14 years
14.
next month. So yeah, 14 years. Well, in
14.
August. Yep.
Wow, we have 14. And I'm so sorry, Scarlett. I just cut you off. You're about to say
No,
something.
you're good. Well, I was going to say, and that was another thing that for us was one of our main struggles, is that we wanted to be such just a great influence on our kids that we had them signed up for everything, doing everything, living the American dream. But it
Yeah.
caused us to not have any time to come together and create this family in our household, because we were always gone or doing or going in that situation. So we would try to come up with a game plan. We would try, like, we were like, okay, so we're going to do this. This is how we're going to parent. And then life would happen. They would go to their other parents, and then we have to deal with when they come back and that whole transition period, and nothing was ever consistent. And so we couldn't ever just get a hold of what it needed to look like in our family.
Does your partner share kids with a loony? Are your stepkids driving you up a wall? Is your partner failing miserably at setting boundaries? Well, VIP Stepmom is where you need to be. We're an exclusive private community just for stepmoms, and we'd love for you to join our tribe. Each month, our members enjoy private conversations, podcasts, expert workshops, a subscription to Stepmom Magazine, and monthly live Zoom meetings. If you're ready to join a diverse community that is committed to making sure you live your best life, visit VIP Stepmom today. We'll save a seat for you.
VIP Stepmoms, that's you and me.
Sounds like there's a whole bunch of moving parts, and I feel like those of us that are in blended families, is sometimes your home does have a revolving door, because there's another parent that might have a very positive and sometimes very negative or just very different impacts on what you're doing in your household. Let's kind of transition into talking about how you guys, as a married couple, how do you navigate when the people that don't live in your household that are impacting your children? What are some of the things that you do to navigate these nuances that come along with co-parenting or counter-parenting, as I like to say sometimes?
Yeah, we had on both sides, we had high conflict co-parenting. We all saw very differently, different morals, different ways of parenting, different, and it really did. It got, I mean, we had court systems involved. It got down to that. And, we were in
Oh,
and out of
yeah.
courts with a lot of things. And so it was a challenge, especially at first. We didn't know how to handle it. So it was a
Yeah.
lot of arguing, is a lot of, it's like you always know the right buttons to push with your ex, and they always know those right buttons to push with you to turn
My
you
favorite,
in.
my favorite
other
button with the
person.
X to push is the block button. But
Well, we do that too. And the hang up button, it's like, done talking. That's it.
end call, decline. Yes.
End call. But it's learning boundaries. It's really trying to learn those boundaries, and also learn that they're just things outside of your control, and you have to be able to handle what's within your control, what's within your house. And those outside influences, what we like to say, we go back to our faith, we pray about it. The things that are outside of our control, we pray about it and give it to God. No, he's working it all out. So, but within our control, within our house, we create certain rules, certain ways. We do try to create our own little culture here while it's within our control.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a hard lesson that learned the hard way, and like most of the blended family situations. And that was, I did try to control my ex-husband and what happened in their house. And in a sense, even the things that were going on in my stepdaughter's house, like I wanted them to live the same life we were trying to give the kids. This is
because
right.
we know best, right? Because
Yeah.
ours is a standard and we know what's best. Right.
Obviously, that's why we believe that. And I mean, I would try, and he was not, and my ex-husband was not having it. And anything that I would say was right, obvious, he said it was wrong, and vice versa. And so I spent a lot of energy and time trying to get him, and a lot of money and court systems and all that, to get him to understand that he needed to raise the children the way that I believe they needed to be raised. And it wasn't until they became teenagers and they began to push back in that area. And each of our kids, one by one, starting with our stepdaughter and then with my two, left to go live with their other parent. And at the time that they were doing it, and the ages that they were with my stepdaughter, we really, the laws and the rules in their state, there wasn't a whole lot we could do. We just, okay, go and do, and try this out and see how it goes. And it was heartbreaking because it ended up ruining our relationship. For 3 years we went without having any contact really with her. And then that fell suit with my two children as well. And they kept running away, and I had law kind of on my side. So I kept trying to bring them back. But
so one day you were just like, you know what? I got to let go and let God, because I'm trying to force this thing. Do you think that Big Riley influenced, because they saw like, wait, she can go out and live with her other parent and do what she wants to do. Do you think that was an influence on your younger two?
Oh, it definitely, the words came out of their mouth at different times. Well, y'all let her do it. And I'm like, we didn't really have a lot of open conversations like that with our kids either when it came to that kind of stuff. We tried to like shield them and guard them in all the ways possible. And so we could have had a lot more conversations and communications and cleared some air in there. It wasn't really until the kids were leaving that I just started to throw out anything I could to try to make them stay. And so opening up and telling them, like, we did not let her, that was a painful season for us, but we didn't have a choice. And so that was one of the things. It definitely influenced. They're like, okay, if she could do it, we can do it.
You know what? I think it's I legitimately admire the fact that you two are able to come out and say, man, at one point our kids left. Because for a lot of parents, and we all know parenting is one of the most egotistical roles that you can have. That does a number on your ego when your kid looks at you and you've raised them, you've changed your diapers, you've done all these things, and they want to go to that other person that you may or may not even like or respect or have a relationship with. I imagine that it feels defeating, and it's humiliating, and it's very humbling, So you mentioned the 3 years that, you had this 3-year space of just silence. Was this alienation, or was this just time that everybody needed to heal and let's pump the brakes and you go do your thing and I do mine?
No, it was definitely blocked. I mean, whenever my daughter left, it was more of those. I fought really hard, and legally I could have made her stay. And I did a lot of things like canceling plane flights and things of that. But after really, I was looking for wise counsel. I'm calling my pastor. I'm calling,
anybody.
And I'm arguing on the phone with her mom. And I mean, it was very ugly and very nasty. But it came down to one day really kind of seeing where she was and knowing no matter how hard I fight, I could have fought to make her stay and made her stay, but it would have messed her up here. She was already gone in here. And if I had forced that, that's not healthy either. So even if I disagreed with where she was going or the lifestyles, no matter what, this wasn't healthy. And so I knew that I had to come.
Randall, what was her reason? Because I know we're talking teenagers, and guys, we all know teenagers' brains ain't even developed. But they look grown, they smell grown, but they do not have the capacity to make these decisions. So for the parents out there that are literally dealing with the same thing, because there's so many that are probably too embarrassed to say, and they think they're losing, air quotes, losing their children. What were her reasons? This
is the hardest part that we see in so many blended families is when our kids hit those teenage age, they looking, the grass is greener on the other side. And especially if they've been with you the majority of the time, they want to explore, they want to know. And the truth is they are still their other parent, whether you like it or not,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
so they always, it's always that thing,
Desire.
around the 14, 15, 16-year age, they push back, and they have those desires. And for her, that was it. She missed her mom. She wanted a relationship with her mother that she hadn't had,
Yes.
and she was really fighting for that. And even in our house, you saw the pushback especially from a stepmom's role. That's one of the toughest positions. I give kudos to all stepmoms out there, because that's one of the most challenging positions. But there was so much pushback and resentment that she wanted that relationship with her mom. And she had even opened up. It was years later, after she came back, and she did come back, and it was a beautiful story, and everything was restored. And even our relationships with all of our kids are at the best they've ever been. That is just a phenomenal thing at what has happened. But at that time, it really was. She looks back now and she says, you know what, I saw little Riley and Devin with you,
Having a
and
mom.
I
Ugh.
wanted that. In fact, I resented them for having that relationship.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it at that time, and it's so crazy that our kids, even at that
Wow.
age, they don't understand. They don't know why they're angry. They don't know why they're
Right.
upset, but they have a longing for their other parent, especially if they're not with them or they see them every now and then. They want that. They want that relationship. They desire it. And if they get to a point where they can push back, they're going to. It's just going to be a thing.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, given the situation, they have to experience that. They have to make that choice on their own.
They do.
And that's the hardest thing as a parent. And I know probably people listening right now are saying that sucks, and it does.
Yeah.
That sucks as just being a parent right there, being able to go through that. But let me tell you, whenever that alone strengthened our marriage,
Yeah.
at a time to where it could have broke us apart, it strengthened us because we chose to latch onto each other and to cry on each other's shoulder, and to, it built our faith. Our faith just, totally grew, so that came from it. And then our relationships came back. I always love to say our kids at that age, they leave for a little while, just at who they are. They become different people. They become really weird at that age. Then they come back to sanity and reality.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
they do, and they come back, and you can have some beautiful relationships, but it is on how you go through that and not make them more damaging. You want to do things within that time period that will allow them to come back without continuing.
Ooh, Scarlett, I want to put a pin in it. I have like 50 million questions for you. But then when she came back, Randall, when she was like, okay, let's open the door. You've had this 3-year period of pretty much dead silence, right?
Yeah.
How was the transition to saying, so hey dad, grass ain't greener, or hey, I think I'm ready now? How does that go?
Yeah. So whenever she left, she had built up these monsters in her head, outside influences speaking into her, to where she really created, we were the monsters. We were against her.
You're the bad
And
guy.
exactly. And so when she left, that was her mental state at that time. So when she left, she blocked me from all social media. She blocked me from phone. I couldn't message her. I couldn't call her. She wouldn't answer. And so, we did that for years, and I would attempt and nothing. And you're talking about a dad who's just brokenhearted. I'm sitting here crying, saying, I don't even know if I'm going to get to walk my daughter down the aisle type mentality.
You didn't see an end to any of this.
You go through these emotions, but like I said, we lean on each other. We grew our faith. But there was a time whenever Susan, our oldest now, she came into the picture, and my daughter started seeing that on social media, and she was like,
it's like, who is this girl?
She was like, oh,
me?
They just replaced me. Exactly. She replaced me. And so now there's all this bashing and talk. And I'm like, that's not even it. You don't even know the story, man. I want to tell you, And so I was like broken heart whenever I heard that. I'm reaching out, and, I'm talking with our youth pastor and saying, hey, could you call her? Could you reach out? All these avenues just to make a connection to where she would start talking. But I had to get intentional. This is one of the points to where you could just throw your hands up and say, there's nothing I can do. But the thing is, I was like, you know what? I'm going to call her once a week, every week, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to let her know I'm there. I'm going to let her know I care and I love her and I want to talk to her. So I put a reminder on my phone every Sunday. I would call her. And, there was times when she didn't answer, but finally she did answer. And whenever she answered, it was very surface level. It was like, hey, how's the weather? The weather's good. How or is the weather
communication
there?
is opening up at this point.
I had to be intentional to try to open up that line of communication. And after us doing that, we started really being able to have good conversation. She started letting her walls down and we started to really talk and connect. And finally, there was one day to where she was like, Dad, I want to come down and visit. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And we
So
even
wait
got
a minute. What about the influence from her other parent? I mean,
there was a lot of bad things going on with her at that time and with the whole situation, which we kind of knew was going to happen, but she had to experience it.
She has to
And
find out, y'all. She has to. That's what I tell people. These kids, sometimes you just got to sit back and shut your mouth and pray that God protects them and nothing bad happens to them and that they can recover. But they got to see some things on their own.
Part of that too, she had already left her mom's situation, was living at her grandmother's, her mom's mom, because she knew she had got to a place where this wasn't good anymore, but she was too scared to come back.
She was humiliated too. She was like, dang, I put my foot in my mouth. But she told you, she says, Dad, I want to come to see you guys.
And so we had a couple of times to where we got her a plane ticket, and day of, she got really anxious and she backed out. And so here we are, we're like, oh my goodness. And so she's calling me down and didn't get on the plane, and we're like brokenhearted.
We bought all her favorite foods, everything to prepare the house. We're so excited. We hadn't seen her in years. And then she's not, we are sitting in our room on the ground crying, like, come on, God.
So it took that a couple of times. And finally, one time I'm like, you know what? I will drive up there and get you. And so and she was cool with that. And I'm like, let's do this. So I drove, it was like a 10-hour trip there. And then we turned right around and did another 10 hours back to.
So it was just you and her in the car for 10 hours.
And her. I drove up there to get her. That way she didn't have to do the whole plane thing. And so, I was on the road for like 20 hours that day. And it was so worth it. Whenever I picked her up, I still feel that hug. I still feel that hug from her.
Don't make me cry.
Yeah, I'm like trying to cheer up a little bit.
I'm about to cry too.
It was such an impacting moment. And then on the ride back, we just had such great conversation. We didn't stop talking to each other, and it was such a beautiful thing. And just that broke down walls to where it wasn't soon after that. She was like, "Can I move back in?" And it's like, "This is your house."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
that was Scarlett. My question for your beautiful wife is, you are literally watching a grown man break down in tears. His heart is broken, and it's a piece of his heart that you don't have access to, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. How do you, as a wife, as a person that loves him so much, how do you just sit and watch this man struggle and face this type of pain?
It was hard. And I was out of town when this all went down in the beginning. And so coming home to him being broken in that sense and him telling me what had taken place, I was just like, I don't know. It broke my heart in pieces, and I'm not even the biological parent. So I couldn't imagine what he felt. And so just trying to, for us, probably longer than it should have, was like a dark cloud around our house, because he was sad and I took on all of that pain myself too. And unfortunately for our younger two kids that still lived here as well, it was like a dark cloud, because we were all just in this state of, we don't know how to move forward. We don't know what to do. And so for me, it finally got to a place where that's when I started praying. That's when I learned how to pray, how to find scripture that went with what we needed in this time. And so it wasn't with him necessarily. It was in my own quiet time that I was just on my knees, just begging God for him to do something for the situation. And every time there was this little glimpse of hope. It might have been that a text message came through somewhere, or she told somebody something that got back to us. And it was just these faith builders, these little encouragements of like, okay, God is working. He is using this. And I was a creeper on the social media. I'm good. So I would go I would go like figure out ways around the block to find out what was going on in her life. And so I could see these things. And then I would tell him and kind of stir up some situations or whatever. But it would be just praying. That was the thing that began to break down. And then being able to support him in that, as far as like him going, like I just praying that God would give him creative ideas to be able to reach her and, you know, have connection with her and not taking it personally. And during that whole season, I learned and grew for myself so that I was able to be a better wife for him.
And you did not know the storm that was waiting around the corner for you. Because because now it was going to be his turn to support you. So then transitioning over to your experience, and then your kids saying, well, hey, we have another parent too, and you guys have all these rules. And I'm pretty sure they were traumatized from what happened with your older child, and you guys had to become different people. So they're like, let me try this. And then now, Scarlett, you are faced with your own issue of your kids saying, Mom, we're running away. I don't want to be here. They're not even saying it to you. They're just doing it.
Just packing their bags and leaving while we're at church. That's the kind of stuff.
Like, honey, you don't have any bags. I bought all that stuff. Like, hold on. But, you know.
Well, no, there was one time that we were at church. We were actually doing an event and everything at the church, and it was an evening, and they were with their dad, and they said, hey, we're going to go out to lunch or out to dinner with Dad. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Y'all go do that. And we come home and their stuff's gone.
So they had the support of the other parent, and obviously I don't want to tell these young people's story because they're not here to tell their own, but this is why I like focusing on the parents' experience. So, but basically they had the support of an adult to be like, go get your stuff and go.
And could you imagine what and that's kind of what we look back now. It's like, man, what are they thinking? What are they going through? Especially being told two different things, and just being able to navigate that. And they love both of us. They love their dad, they love their mom, and they're just trying to figure it out themselves. So the things that our kids get put into, and that's kind of what we realized after, is like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I thought it was hard. I thought I couldn't feel any more pain than what we experienced when Big Riley left. But when it was my biological kids, I mean, I refused. When it got to the point where we said, we're going to release Riley, she's going to go, I was like, okay, fully supportive. This is what we got to do. But when it came to my own kids, I said, we're finding a lawyer. We're getting the best.
He's like, Scarlett, we got to release them. And you're like, no. So,
it's not happening.
Right. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, because it's like, okay, now this is your time for all that faith and all those prayers that you were directing for him. You're like, God gave you answers. And now he's like, girl, you already got the answers. I told you. Now it's your turn to start to digest that.
Yeah. But what's amazing, though, is right about that time that they were doing this, and there's a lot of back and forth, is in and out of courts at that time. That's when Big Riley was coming back. So, and our relationship was restoring. And so going through that, we saw the hope. We saw, it was almost like God was giving us the hope and saying, you
saw the past, present, and future at the same time. You're like, I know this, how this ends.
But I'll tell you, I thought there was a timeline. It took 3 years. And I said, well, they live closer to me. So it's going to be about half the amount of time to get them.
Scarlett, you started to calculate. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I know what to do. I know the steps. This is how it's going to work. And it wasn't, they still had to live the life that they went off to go live. And I had to allow that. But it was a brokenness of like, me still trying to hold on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to force them. And then finally that release. And then again, like you're saying, it was a countdown. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to give them some time. But then I was so hurt. I was embarrassed, like you were saying. I was like, who am I to say, like, I don't even have my own kids? Like, what kind of mom doesn't even have her own children? And I realized that was his ex-wife's story the whole time, that she didn't have her own child. But yet when it was me, it was a whole different ball game,
Oh, girl. I feel like we preaching. I feel like we at church today.
It got to a point where I had to decide that I was going to let them go, even if it came to the point that I was scared for their life. I'll be honest with you. The situations that I was afraid would take place when they were off living on their own in their teenage years, the things I always tried to protect them from situations that maybe were real or not real, that I built up with their dad and the lifestyle that he had, and just drug abuse, like the things
all
I
of
was
the things.
afraid of. Yes.
Yep.
That I was like, they're going to die. What if they die because I'm not fighting hard enough? And that was what I kept thinking. I can't let them go, God, because I can't give up on my kids. And God finally got me to a place, and I still get emotional when I talk about it, that you've got to let them go. I will take care of them. You have to trust that I will take care of them. And I said, finally, okay, I trust you, God. I trust you more than my kid's life. And that is, I felt like a bad mom to say that, to say, I trust you, God, more than I trust the fact that my kids might die in this process. And it sounds extreme, and I am a little extreme. Sometimes I can be a little extra, but when
a legitimate fear though, that's legit. It's
and
not
what kind
unfounded.
of mom does that? What kind of mom lets her kids go? And I let them go. I released them, and I mourned for a long time in that season, and I let them. And it wasn't, and I tell this story sometimes, there was a moment where I was passing somebody that I thought was my son. We live in the same town. I thought it was my son, and it wasn't, but we just passed each other. And I thought, is this the life that I'm going to have with my kids, that we would pass each other in public and not even say hello? Like, and I was like, I don't want this. So I began to do the same thing Randall did. I began to slowly reach out, and not in we have all these differences. There's a lot they were doing in their life that I didn't agree with. I started with this, what we have decided as our choices, that we started with fun. We started with connection. We started with dates, and we're going to push any differences we have aside. We're not going to focus on them, even though
you're not going to comment on the things that you don't like that they're doing, or your shirt is too short. You're not doing any of that. You're just reconnecting.
Inviting them out to do little things, not even in our house, because for some reason our house became this like a trigger for them. And I hated it, because our house to us was comfort and light and life.
It's a sanctuary. Yeah.
Yes. And for them, the way they would describe it, because it had these other connections for them. And so I began to meet with them outside of the house, going and getting ice cream, or, going out to eat, whatever that looked like.
Now, Randall, were you a part of that, or did you guys decide that it's best that they focus on them and mom?
Correct. Yeah. At that time, their relationship needed to be restored first. They needed to have that relationship. They needed to have the mom-son time. They needed to have the mom-daughter time. They needed to be able to reconnect on that biological level, and I stood back and supported her and encouraged her, no matter however I could, but they had to have that time, and that is, I think, big for bonus parents, not to feel like they've got to force themselves into those situations.
That is so hard.
It is. It really is. But they've got to be able to reconnect, because once they can reconnect, we can all reconnect.
Yes.
But that's got to be that lifeline first. But it is finding those common interests and having fun together started breaking down walls, for our relationships that really
so then, Scarlett, when you were sitting down with the kids, you're doing these reintroductions, you're attempting to reunify, what were some of the challenges that you started to notice?
Mostly, like you said earlier, and we've used the exact same words, our house became a revolving door, because once the walls were down, and sometimes even circumstances where the kids were kind of forced back to come live with us, our door was open always. They would come back in, and now I did have to still parent. We did have to still parent these children. And so it wasn't all just fun and games. So now I'm having to speak on the things that I don't agree with, or maybe they're coming home. They've had so much freedom, and now they're coming home, and
rules.
They're wanting to go out, be on their own, come in late hours. And our household doesn't function that way, because we have to be up early. And, drug abuse, different things like that, where I'm like, I can't sit back and not say anything or do anything, because now it's our house that it's affecting. So we came to a place of, if it wasn't allowed in our house and you had to respect these hours, this is how we function. And if you can do that, you're always welcome here. But if you can't, then you need to find another place, or let us help you. That's another thing that we ended up doing really well, is let us help you find a different option than living here. I love you enough that I know this isn't going to work. And they're young adults at this point. It's not like we're sending our 16-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're 17, 18, 19 at
Right.
this age.
And you're realizing this is not working for anybody.
Yeah.
I admire how you guys handle this. Oh my God. So then you're saying, let me help you find somewhere else, but it can't be here, not like this.
Yeah. And so that's what we did with each of the kids and helped them get on that platform. And some of them, went out and flourished, and some crashed and burned and came back. And it has been this revolving thing. But I'll tell you, each time the kids have come back, there's been a different, even when Big Riley came back, a different kind of respect for our household and just being a part of a community, and her relationship with me and the things that I poured into in those early years that maybe she rejected, that she embraced more of now because she saw the difference in different lifestyles and stuff. And so that was just comforting, knowing that we did these things. We planted so many seeds in the beginning, even though they were rejected for several years when the grass was greener on the other side. Then they began to see, their eyes were open, and they began to love and honor and respect those things that made up us as their parents.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, I mean, my daughter and her they're like best friends. I always say that, and she goes, "No, we are best friends.
We're not like best friends. We are best friends."
They have a better they have a better relationship than I think me and her do, because they're always hanging out and always. I mean, it's just it's amazing. It's beautiful, kind of where it's at today.
Life has been, you guys you were the prime examples of life throwing all these really hard things at you, and you look like the example of what it means to flourish and enjoy your blended family. Now, we didn't get a chance too much to talk about your adopted child, but I know it sounds like that was kind of the glue also. Like, the kids are seeing this person that you guys took on, and you're their biological parents, and they're like, look how we're doing our biological parents, and they've chosen, and this young lady has this opportunity. So where does this Susan is her name, correct?
Yeah.
Where does Susan fit into all of this craziness? Did she say, "Oh God, I should have picked another family," or like what?
No, she had her own baggage, and that's kind of one of those things to where, whenever you are fostering a kid, this wasn't a legal fostering, but it's bringing her into our home and saying,
"That's still your baby.
This is home. We're offering you love, support, and all that." And, she had her own issues just from her background that she was having to work with. So there's a lot of personality differences and the personality clashes that we all had to blend. It's like a whole new blending process that kind of came in for us.
And she came in wanting to act and behave the way we wanted our kids to act and behave. She came in calling us mom and dad.
Yeah.
She came in like wanting to help, and then being like what we would consider, she's the only kid of ours that went to like a 4-year university, but that had nothing on us. That was her. She wanted prom. She wanted the high school experience, and none of our kids cared for any of that.
So you guys still got to experience. So you guys still got to experience that. And I always say family is really what you make it to.
It is.
So you guys have literally defined and then redefined and then defined again what family looks like. So whatever happened with, the biological parents, how ironic, Scarlett, that you said, and I'm sure you probably had some feelings about this woman that didn't have her kid, and, oh, where is this mother? And then you yourself are forced to look at this image in the mirror, and you're seeing that same thing being projected back to you. What a humbling thing. What a humbling thing to, deal with that. And then you as a husband, Randall, your job is to serve and protect. Was that the police or is that husbands? To protect the household. What am I saying?
Who knows?
No. You would think, masculine. I'm going to protect my household from harm. I'm going to keep all outsiders away from this armor that we have here. And then watching these children that you also loved and protected, and watching your wife be hurt by someone else. Have you guys individually and as a couple, have you been able to find common ground with the other parents, or is that just is what it is?
It's really a roller coaster. I mean, when I see things on social media, and I want to be like besties with our exes. And sometimes we're in a season, like we'll have Riley's younger brother come and stay this summer. with us. It's, no biology to us, but he'll come and
nice.
he'll stay and hang out, and things are great. And then sometimes, especially when we started this journey, it was painful for her to watch us talk about this stuff. So we ended up blocking just for her sanity and for me to be able, I was trying to be too guarded in everything that I did. I couldn't talk happy or I couldn't talk sad because everything would upset her because she didn't get to experience the things we experienced.
But it was damaging her and Riley's relationship. So she'd always go back on Riley and it was really damaging there for them. So yeah, we have to kind of watch those. But I mean, with her mother, we've been out to dinner and stuff with her and her boyfriend and things like that several times, especially whenever we were picking up, her son and everything. We go and we meet halfway and we sit down and have a dinner together and stuff like that. So, it really is. It's, we both on both sides, we try to be respectful and, just really understanding the other's point of view and seeing that. And sometimes it works well for all of us and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't.
And we got to distance ourselves a little more. And then sometimes we get pulled in, we get a little closer and sometimes we just, so, it really is that roller coaster and you just take it as it goes. And the thing is we love them and we want the best for them, right? And on both sides. And that's kind of the approach is, we don't want any harm. We want, I want my daughter and her to have a good relationship. Even now that they're adults, I still want them to have a good relationship because they need that. They need that from both parents.
Absolutely. So. That's amazing for the child. So then you guys, enjoying your blended family. It seems like y'all have done more than enjoy your family. You guys have, y'all have really experienced the gamut of, now that I think of it, like darn near every piece of the blended family. You've gone from the conflict, you've ridden the roller coaster, and you also seems like you're at the point of like radical acceptance. You're like, listen, we're not always going to be best friends. We're not closing the door, but we know how to protect ourselves and our household.
Right.
Wow. So then tell everybody how to find you, because I told you guys I was only going to keep you a half hour, but this guy's so good. Audience, I know you guys don't mind. This guy's so good. Y'all know I couldn't cut them off, but I want everybody, please go find Randall and Scarlett. Please go find them. And guys, tell everybody that's listening how to connect with you and how to find you.
Yeah, for sure. So we're on all the socials. It's Enjoying Your Blended Family. Our main hangout is Instagram, that and Facebook. We got our podcast as well. But yeah, Enjoying Your Blended Family, you can find us. But yeah, that's really what it's about is through this whole journey, we've learned that you connect more with having fun. You connect more when you see more joy. When you look for more joy, you see more joy. And that's kind of through this whole process. And being able to do that, it has brought restoration to all of our relationships and just put them on another level. And so, for so long, we were really chasing the moment and saying, well, when we hit here, it'll get better. When we find here, we'll find peace. And, it was really that ministering to us that we have to enjoy the moment now. We have to choose to enjoy it now. Because if we don't, it's always a fleeting thing. And we're going to
constantly Pastor Randall. Okay, Pastor Randall.
Yes. And then that's what our focus is on our podcast too. Like Mondays, we talk about real topics of enjoying your blended family. There are hard things and it is a choice that we make. And then Fridays, we share ideas. So for anyone that's listening and you're like, well, how can I enjoy my blended family? We share ideas how to date your spouse. Cause sometimes you're left where it's just the two of you and you have to learn how to enjoy that too. If it's a holiday or if it's a regular weekend, summertime when you were supposed to have your kids and you don't, whatever that looks like. So we share ideas how to enjoy each other. We share ideas how to enjoy one-on-one time with your own biological kid or your step kid, or ideas as a whole family. So that's really, we try to do a nice balance because it isn't all rainbows and butterflies in enjoying your blended family. There is still the hard part, but it's a choice to enjoy whatever that looks like in your blended family.
And it gets better the more you do it. It gets a little easier the more you do it.
He still has to remind me every holiday.
It really does get better. You know why? Because even if those other people in the world don't, we do. We have, like you said, we have to focus on getting better every single day. Scarlett and Randall Tandy. Y'all, this has been such an amazing hour with the Tandys. I kind of feel like y'all are going to have to come back. And also for everyone that's listening, every single one of their links their podcast, their social media. Everything is going to be listed down below and here on the screen for those of you that are watching us. I thank you all for joining in another episode of I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall. New episodes every other Tuesday, everywhere your favorite podcasts are streamed. Thank you so much. And you know Miss Naja loves you.
I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. With Naja Hall.